afternoon, and thank you for joining us today as we kick off our Positive Ageing Month. My name's Robyn Seymour, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Surf Coast Shire Council. Our local government area spans the traditional lands of the Wadawurrung people and Eastern Ma people, and I'm joining you today from Wadawurrung country. Being an online meeting today, we wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which each person is attending and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. We also acknowledge other Aboriginal people who may be attending this event today. Today, we are joined by our Mayor, Councillor Libby Stapleton, Councillor Gary Allen, who sits on our Positive Ageing Advisory Committee, and our special guest speaker today, Dr. Anne Ring, who I'll introduce later. I'd like to make a special mention to our Positive Ageing Advisory Committee for pulling this month-long event together, and welcome all of the fantastic community groups joining us today, including our local Probus groups. I know an online events aren't quite the same as all being in one room together, and it would have been lovely to be together, but I think that having an online event also has the opportunity of providing access to people who otherwise may not have been able to attend, and it still allows us to celebrate our Positive Ageing Month in a safe way. Today is a very significant day on the calendar, with October 1 being International Probus Day, International Day for Older Persons, and Ageism Awareness Day. For those of you who may not know, Probus is a not-for-profit organisation with over 100,000 members and is all about social connections in retirement. Probus clubs provide the opportunity for retirees and semi-retirees to come together in their local community, make new friends, and participate in a wide range of activities. Council will fly the Probus flag today in recognition of all of our local Probus groups. International Day of Older Persons is a UN initiative that encourages the celebration of seniors in the community. This year's theme, which is a great theme, is Stepping into the Future, tapping the talents, contributions and participation of older persons in society. Something our Positive Ageing Month encourages by facilitating and engaging discussions with inspiring guests. Last but not least, Ageism Awareness Day is an opportunity to draw attention to the existence and impacts of ageism in Australia, which is a critical step to changing community attitudes. This day is an opportunity to support the growing social movement to shift attitudes towards older age and older people. We recognise the importance of our ageing community and want Surf Coast Shire to be a great place for everyone to age in, which is what events like this are all about. So I would like to now introduce our Mayor Stapleton, who will talk about the importance of age-friendly communities. Thank you, Mayor Stapleton.
Thank you, Ms. Seymour, and good afternoon to everyone. I too would like to acknowledge that the Surf Coast Shire spans the traditional lands of the Wadawurrung people and the Eastern Ma people, and acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which each person is attending, and pay respect to elders past and present. It really is a pleasure to be here. Recognising, supporting and embracing our ageing population and creating age-friendly communities across the Surf Coast Shire is something we as a council are extremely committed to. Age is just a number. It does not define anyone. We want the Surf Coast Shire to be a great place, regardless of your age. In 2016, council signed the Age-Friendly Victoria Declaration, and in doing so, set its commitment to working toward attaining World Health Organisation status as an age-friendly community. And in July of this year, I signed our formal application seeking membership of this global network. As part of this work, a Positive Ageing Advisory Committee was established in October 2018. Councillor Allen will explain the role of the committee in further detail, but it is designed to assist us in creating an age-friendly Surf Coast where our ageing community feels valued, supported and empowered to live well. Working with the Positive Ageing Advisory Committee and in consultation with Council's diverse communities and townships, an age-friendly strategy 2020 to 2024 was developed and adopted by Council in August last year. Based on the WHO Age-Friendly Communities framework, the strategy sets Council's new direction, moving from its historical service delivery model to one of building age-friendly communities. Council will play a pivotal role in leading and facilitating communities where people of all ages, regardless of ability or life stage, can live a quality, engaged and meaningful life. Key projects will focus on community issues raised in areas such as housing, transportation, social participation, respect and social inclusion, community support and health services. The Positive Ageing Advisory Committee meets regularly to oversee the implementation of this strategy. We will continue to engage and involve community members in the process of becoming more age-friendly through leadership, collaboration, partnership and advocacy. After all, age-friendly communities rely on all sorts of people, groups and organisations working together. On a personal note, I had a birthday last week and turned 53. I love getting older for a whole lot of reasons, including the fact that I'm still alive and I get to watch my kids grow up and enjoy more time with family and friends. And I'm so grateful to be ageing in a community where we enjoy a wonderful lifestyle and are so well supported. And the sooner we can all value old age, the greater the outcomes will be for society as a whole. I hope you all enjoy today's event. I'm really looking forward to hearing Dr. Anne Ring's insights, and I hope you get involved in the other events planned, which Councillor Allen will run through next. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Stapleton. Now I'd like to introduce Councillor Gary Allen, who's done a lot of work in this area and has done a lot of work in supporting positive ageing. And he's going to tell us about his work on the Positive Ageing Advisory Committee and give us a rundown on the online events happening every Friday of this month. Thanks very much, Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Ms. Seymour. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd also like to acknowledge the Surf Coast Shire spans traditional lands. I'm speaking to you from Gadibanal country, and as one can only dare to imagine, lands that were abundant with yams, wildlife and food from the sea, with people migrating through the magical Otways towards the Cumberland River and beyond. And I acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which each person is attending and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. As the Mayor said, while we'd prefer to be catching up in person for obvious reasons, our Positive Ageing Month of events will be all online. But we promise you some really interesting and engaging discussions, as well as entertainment that you can join in from wherever is convenient for you. As a member of the Council's Positive Ageing Advisory Committee, I see the purpose of Positive Ageing Month aligning with the Council's core values and beliefs as articulated in the new Council plan. We want the Surf Coast Shire to be a place where everyone feels valued, supported and empowered to live well and, where possible, in place. The Positive Ageing Advisory Committee was established in October 2018. The committee consists of 11 community representatives with a spread from the wards and, where possible, inclusive representation. Each person is endorsed every 3 years and key council officers to advise. The reasons why I nominated for the committee are the same reasons for my decision to stand for the council, even though I was told by one person that at age 75 I was too old. Well, as you can imagine, that only hardened my resolve. The reasons are that I firmly believe that the art of aging well involves diet, exercise, having a positive attitude, and the importance of social connection. Well, I passed 3 of the 4. 75% is not too bad. It's a pity about the diet. The Positive Ageing Committee provides advice to the Council on strategies, plans and policies which relate to people ageing well in their community, with each community representative highlighting the uniqueness of their township and district. The Council recognises the importance of community character and difference within our Shire. The committee was able to provide the Council with advice about the My Aged Care reforms as the Council transitioned out of service provision. The committee advised that we should retain, for as long as possible, regional assessment, because the committee felt that it was important for us to connect with the vulnerable people within our community. And the officers play an important part in monitoring the role of the providers who have moved into the space of service provision. The committee collects and considers evidence, ideas and community input about how the Council can best create an age-friendly Surf Coast. Social participation goes hand in hand with changing the conversation around ageing. The importance of active social participation is a key pillar of our age-friendly strategy. So today we're launching our booklet, Active Communities, a guide for over 55s living on the Surf Coast. It lists a range of local community groups and activities that people can connect to and participate in. You can download a copy at the Council's website, surfcoast.vic.gov.au/over55s, or you can call the Council to arrange for a copy to be posted to you. The guide covers all sorts of interests, and I believe is a wonderful resource for people new into our community. Ironically, we are supportive and close-knit townships, but it is often hard for newcomers to make the initial breakthrough. This publication will be of great assistance. I see the Positive Ageing Month as an opportunity to change the image and dialogue around ageing from one of frailty and weakness to one of vibrancy and active participation in the community. I can say that we have a fantastic itinerary lined up for every Friday during October. I say that because I'm facilitating the first one next Friday, October the 8th, alongside Peter Spring, who's president of the Law and Historical Society. We will be discussing the fascinating history of the construction of the Great Ocean Road. 100 years ago, next year, my 14-year-old father, Norman Allen, sat on the embankment where the Law and Historical Society room is currently located and saw the first vehicle to enter Lorne by travelling the Great Ocean Road. Then on Friday, the 15th of October, there will be a discussion from the University of the Third Age. You can find out about the organisation and what it offers, from yoga to Tai Chi to art and poetry classes. The session will finish off with a half-hour trivia quiz. If you're a music lover, join Andy Podjoy on the 22nd of October for a piano bar live stream. Andy's a born entertainer who will be playing all the classics. Then on Friday, the 29th of October, Chris McKee will delve into using positive psychology to promote well-being and positive ageing. You can find out ways to help boost your mood, draw on your personal character strengths, and help adopt mindsets and strategies to manage stress. It was only a pity this wasn't available 5 days ago. I would have taken the opportunity to join. To take part, go to the event page, surfcoast.vic.gov.au/over55s, and click on the links or call the Council on 52 610 600 if you need assistance. So I encourage others to come along online with you, get settled wherever, and join in the events. Thank you so much for joining us today, and please stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. It's great to see such a diverse range of events happening over the month. It's now my very great pleasure to introduce this afternoon's keynote speaker, Dr. Anne Ring. Dr. Ring's recent article, "I'm Old and Happy About It, so Don't Dare Call Me Young for My Age," best sums up how she feels about ageing. She's described as a crusader for the ageing by Benevolent Society's national Every Age Counts campaign, and has also been a member of the Older People Speak Out since the late 1990s. She's a regular writer of articles on various aspects of ageing and has recently completed a comprehensive book about ageing well, which is due to be published shortly. Now retired, she has worked as a vocational and then as a clinical psychologist, anthropologist, sociologist, and most recently as a consultant and as a researcher, variously in medical education, media analysis, body image, and ageing. She is happily married, mother of 3, and actively involved grandparent of 6. Now, as you listen to Dr. Anne Ring speak this afternoon, think about what questions you might like to ask Dr. Ring or our counsellors, and put your questions into the chat, and I will then facilitate a Q&A panel at the end so that we can ensure your questions are answered. So just think about that as Dr. Ring speaks to us this afternoon, and it gives me really great pleasure to introduce Dr. Anne Ring. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction, Robyn. I'm very glad to be here, and I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of all of the lands that we're happily gathered here and privileged to be gathered here today on this Zoom session. And I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and of course today is a very auspicious day to do that because it is the International Day of Older Persons. It's also a great pleasure to be here in such a progressive shire. I've been hearing about your work. I'm so impressed that you have Rose Salvo as your age-friendly officer, and you've got the Positive Aging Advisory Committee, the terrific initiatives that you're producing. It's really, really exciting to hear about all that. Now, I'd like to, first of all, just give you the title of my talk, which is Let's Engage with Aging and Challenge the Culture of Youth in Our Society. Really what I want to do here is to talk about aging as something that is positive, that is just another part of our lives, has its high spots, has its low spots, but it's no different to any other age that we've lived through. And we do need to tackle the negativity that overrides some of the views of older ages, and that comes from our culture, and a lot of that is from the culture of youth that we have in our society. So we do need to talk about these two things together. Now, I want to start just with very briefly with a fact about myself, and that fact is that I love antiques. Absolutely adore them, and if Antique Roadshow is on, that's where you'll find me until the last item gets valued. It's been going for 40 years, it's 40 years old, and it's earned its very good reputation. I love the fact that when items are older, the older they are, that generally the more valuable they are, and the value isn't just in monetary terms, it's also in the social history, and it's just something that we can really treasure. Now, I'm sure that you can see where I'm going with this, and that is, of course, that why can't older people be appreciated as we get older rather than depreciated? And as I said, there's that culture of youth that is really there challenging all of that. Now, when I talk about the culture of youth, I certainly don't mean that young people have it any easier than we older people. Every age has its strengths, it has its challenges, and one is no more or less challenged than any other. But what I'm talking about is the value that is put on youth. And when that happens, I mean, it's come to the point now where the word old is becoming considered offensive when it's applied to older people. There's a dictionary definition which says that when the word old is applied to older people, it can cause offense. And really, by this time, people are looking for alternatives. You might be surprised at the number of articles there are looking for these alternatives. And I want to share with you just one of those articles, which was written last year by Joe Pinsker, who wrote for The Atlantic, the American magazine, and 8 pages of work on this. And he is looking to try and find a good term for people in late life. So he's not even prepared to say old people there, people in late life. And he's considering the sorts of words that we might use instead of old. So he's thinking of words like senior, elder, elderly, sage, super adult. He's stretching it a bit there, but he's really trying to find something. And he ends up with the word that is pretty conventional now, which is older, which has the word old in it, but it's softer. Everybody's getting older, so it's not considered to be quite so offensive. And of course, we can see its use even in today, the International Day of Older Persons. So Joe Pinsker also asks, here we have this continuum of aging, which goes from youth, which we're happy to talk about, middle age, we're happy to talk about more or less, comes to the next point, which is old, and suddenly the brakes are put on. Nobody wants to talk about that. And just as a coincidence, in the last few days, in the newspaper that we have, the Herald in Sydney, there's a column which has a number of opinions from different people. Somebody posed the question a few days ago, when does middle age end nowadays? And you might be surprised to know that nobody believed that it ended. We had responses like, following up things like, at 87, I consider myself mature old age. Somebody else who's saying, my husband and I, 83 and 79, are permanently settled in middle age. So you can see that there's a real resistance to using that word old. Now, it's actually spreads beyond even people. Many of you will know the National Seniors magazine, Our Generation. It comes out regularly, and the current issue has a very good example, which I'll come back to later on. But right now, I just want to tell you about it very briefly. In that edition, there's an article about the Gladstone branch. The Gladstone branch has been going for 25 years. The subheading says 25 years young. That's about a branch. So we'll talk about that again a little bit later. And just today, I found there's a program at the moment on the ABC, a series called How to Live Younger. I had a look at that series. When you switch it on, what they're saying in the voiceover is it's all about being fitter, healthier, living a good life, nothing about being younger, but the word that attracts people is how to live younger. So we're looking at quite an issue there. And it's not just the naming of old, it's also the idea of old. Now, how many people do you know who actually sort of look in the mirror when they're getting older and are confronted by what they see? What's this person who's got the hair, the grayish hair, the wrinkles? That's not to me that I recognize anymore. Where's my identity? Where's it gone? And when you think about that question, actually, it's a very odd question to ask. I'm going to share with you here, I hope you can all see it, this happy little baby, lots to be happy about, great parents and so on. That's me at a few months old. And here I am 79 years later. Well, you know all the changes that this little baby had to go through to get here, the changes in face, in body, in size. There's so many differences. And in those transitions, nobody's stopping and saying, that's not me. We just keep on going and going until we get to this point, and suddenly there's a problem. And the problem is because of the pressure of the youth culture. It's more appealing to be younger. And some of that pressure comes, of course, from the anti-aging industries, which make a mozza out of building in perennial dissatisfaction with the way that we look now. I'm talking, of course, about the cosmetics industry. I'm talking about the medical industry, part of it. And these industries are saying, we can help you to look younger with our lotions and our potions and our cosmetic surgery. You don't have to look the age you are. So we've seen these articles and features and television shows saying, we can help you look 10 years younger. So if you're 40, we can help you look 30. If you're 50, then we can help you look 40. If you're 60, then 50. And so it goes all the way up to about 80 or 90, and they kind of lose interest. But they make their money out of building in this dissatisfaction. And how crazy is it to say we should only appreciate looking 40 when we're 50? Why not say, be happy to look 30 when we're 30, be happy to look 40 when we're 40, 50 when we're 50, and so on? Why not enjoy the present rather than this negativity? So when you think about that, how dare they mess with our minds like this? And why do we let them do it? Well, that's a very good question, because in fact, there's been a lot of research to show that if we internalize this negativity, it actually has effects on our well-being. Now, the World Health Organization just this year did a survey of some of the research about this, and the results are interesting and pretty depressing. So what they call self-directed ageism can result in increases in risky health behaviors, negatively affects physical and mental health, accelerates cognitive decline, slows recovery from disability, and reduces longevity. So you can see, and that's just some of the things. I've just picked out some of the main ones. And when it comes to longevity, there's a really interesting study that took place over 23 years. And they established that those people who feel positive about their aging, internalize positive feelings, live up to 7.5 years longer than those who feel negative about their aging. Now, these particular researchers asked a very good question. They asked, if there was a disease that had a cure or a treatment that promised up to 7.5 years longer of life, wouldn't we be jumping on it? Of course we would. Now, with inbuilt negativity about aging, there is also a cure, and that's social change. It's a big ask, but that's what they're saying is needed, and we should be up to doing that. What they're talking, of course, about is tackling ageism, discrimination on the grounds of age. When it comes to older people, it not only has negative effects on our well-being, as you've just heard, it also has negative effects society-wide. It's endemic in the media, it affects the health system, the economy, the workplace discrimination. There are serious problems. So it's something that really needs to be tackled. There needs to be some sort of approach to this, and particularly when you think about ageism as a very distinctive ism. Now, there are quite a few isms in our society which are serious. Sexism, for example, racism, and they address problems that have to be dealt with by a sector of our society, serious problems. But when it comes to ageism, we are all getting older. And if we're lucky enough, we keep on getting older. So when we're talking about ageism, that's the one ism that potentially affects everybody in the society. So isn't that something we should be addressing? Apart from the fact that it might be beneficial for society, it actually is beneficial to ourselves. So we can be motivated by self-interest as well as by more altruistic sort of reasons for fighting ageism. Now, the good news is that fighting ageism is having its day now, and I hope it's a very long day. Internationally, the World Health Organization has now this year put out its global report on ageism. In Australia, we're ahead of the game. We're the first country to have a national approach to tackling ageism, and that's thanks to the Benevolent Society. Some years ago, they carried out their due diligence, did studies to look at the effects of ageism and ways to combat it. And what they found helped them to develop the idea of the organization that we now have, the campaign, the Every Age Counts campaign. Now, some of you will have heard of it, and it's already been mentioned. If you want to know more about it, you can go onto their website and click onto everyagecounts.org.au, and you'll get a lot of really interesting information about what they're doing to challenge ageism. Now, in their website, you can also access a really good magazine that they've produced. You can access it online, and you'll see that it tackles the myth, the facts, and the surprisingly good news about growing older in Australia today, if we can just end ageism. Now, that's really well worth reading. And if you go back to the homepage for this organisation, if you want to join their work and you haven't joined already, and I certainly have, you can sign their pledge, become a member of the campaign, be informed about the actions that they do, and contribute to them as well. It's a very exciting organisation to work with. Now, of course, as well as working with an organisation like that, we can also do things as individuals. Now, there are all sorts of different things that we can think about doing, but I'd just like to share with you some of the things that I do just as examples. I've now spotted on the internet a t-shirt that I am going to get, and I'm very excited about it. If you have a look at it, it should come up on screen, and it's a beautiful way of destigmatizing old. I'm old, cool. I love it, and I can't wait to wear it. I also call myself a media monitor. I've been doing that for years and years, and what that involves is not just reading the media, but really scanning it for how aging is depicted. Now, if there's a very positive approach to aging and realistic and really gives a good message, I write and congratulate the medium. If there's negativity, I tackle that as well. Now, I just mentioned to you earlier on the Gladstone branch and what they were doing, and it should come up on the screen now. The image, you'll see that it says 25 years young, Gladstone branch celebrates growth. Well, of course, I wrote to them and I asked them, why imply that it's only the young who can enjoy a variety of stimulating activities, creativity, fun and fitness, when such attributes can apply equally to great old people continuing to enjoy life? It is really important that we put people to task when they accidentally just promote youth in some way rather than acknowledging the benefits of older ages. Now, another way that I'm doing this is by tackling cinemas. Now, I'm a big fan of movies. I love going to the cinema, but I am not happy with the way that they portray movies for older people. There's a lot more of them now. We're a growing demographic, so there's a very profitable motive. We talked earlier about the profits that businesses really latch onto. Okay, so these movies have lots of interesting stories about older people, some of the positives, some of the challenges. Dementia's having a day, definitely. So the problem that I have with these very good movies is not with the movies themselves, but with the fact that they are promoted, both the festival for older people movies and the movies themselves, as being for the young at heart. Now, what does that even mean? Does it mean that we have to sort of enjoy Tom and Jerry? I can tell you the last Tom and Jerry movie was absolutely abominable. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Does it mean that we can only appreciate movies for old people if we're young at heart? Well, that doesn't actually make any sense whatsoever. So why don't we just simply say, here are great movies for anybody who's interested in older ages, the stories, and certainly not limited to some sector of the population which considers them to be young at heart. That campaign of mine is not actually being very successful at the moment. However, within these organisations, I am getting some interesting people who are listening to what I'm saying, and hopefully eventually we'll get somewhere in a more formal way. So another thing that I do is, and I'm not sure that I can recommend this, but anyone can do it. I've spent the last 12 years, as Robyn mentioned, writing a book about ageing, which in the rather jargonistic terms of the World Health Organization, I am really aiming to change the narrative about ageing. Again, I want to show that it is a stage like any other. It's a complex time. There's lots of good things about it. There are things that we need to think about, how we're going to manage. And it's not something to dread or be fearful about, but something that we need to embrace and make the most of as we do every stage of our lives. So in that way, I guess that you could say that I'm doing something that's complementary to the Every Age Counts campaign. The Every Age Counts campaign is fighting ageism. I, on the other hand, am being pro-aging. So we're doing complementary things there. So when it comes to the good things about aging, what would you say? What would you find was good about aging? I was asked that question in an interview recently, and I wasn't expecting the question, but I had no problem answering it. As Robyn mentioned, we have grandchildren. We have 6 amazing grandchildren from the ages of 4 to 17, and we just love spending time with them, talking with them, doing things with them, caring for them, sometimes traveling with them 2 by 2 so we're not outnumbered. And they bring us perennial absolute joy. To be at this age and to have this is a blessing. We also really love seeing our children growing up to being terrific adults, our good friends, as well as our beloved children. They're great partners, they're great families, and the way they're contributing to the society in their own ways, that's a great joy as well. In addition, in a personal level, I've been retired for 15 years, and I can tell you that the freedom that this has given me to do what I want to do is fantastic. I love the time to do all the writing that I want to do. I love taking photographs. I love going to the cinema, 3 or 4 pictures in a day, no problem. I love walking in the bush and the beach. I love spending time with my husband. After 60 years, that's a pretty good record. And we love doing lots of things together. Not everything, but we certainly do a lot of things together. We love traveling. We love haggling over the photos that then go into the albums to commemorate those travels. We love going on these fantastic bush walks in the Blue Mountains when we can and we're not in lockdown. And so there's lots of things that we enjoy doing. In addition, we are really excited to just now gradually being able to do something constructive about climate change by going electric, and we're just about off the grid now. Pretty exciting. So with all that, there are times that aren't all that great. Life isn't always peaches and cream, whatever stage you're in. And there are some things I can tell you about, and I'm happy enough to tell you about, that have been difficult. I found it very hard to help my father through his terminal illness, and that was at the same age that I am now. So, of course, that was pretty confronting thought. It was hard to care for my mother in her years of dementia. And of course, those two conditions are conditions that I'm very much aware of firsthand now in a way, and fully aware that they may be something that I'm going to have to consider in the future. So enjoying the present is something that I'm really keen to do. There are various physical conditions that we older people are, prone to get, and I've certainly managed to deal with some of those. But one of them, I have to say, has had an unexpected bonus. I've had to have a cataract operation in my left eye, and having had to wear glasses for almost my entire life because I could never manage contact lenses, I now don't have to wear glasses at all except for the computer. And this is a great joy. I'm really loving being able to do that at this time in my life. Now, if somebody came up to me and said, I have the power to send you back 30 years, you can be 30 years younger. Can you imagine? You can be young again. How great is that? Would I accept it? You might. For me, absolutely not. I've had great memories of my life, all the things I've been doing, but to send me back, for example, to 30 years or so ago when I was juggling a full-time job, family and a PhD, my hair wasn't white already, it'd be white. I can tell you just the thought of that. Would I want to go back 12 years to the start of my book? Heavens no. I am really enjoying this point when soon it'll be in the bookshops and one of my life's ambitions will be fulfilled. I am thrilled that I'm finally going to be in the book world from the other end. But even more exciting, actually, is the fact that aging experts have read the book and they feel that it's going to make a really useful contribution, that people will get benefit from reading it, and that is really why I wrote it in the first place, not just because I wanted to put it in bookshops. So if you want to find out more about the book and about my writings in the area of aging, and I've written prolifically about this for so many years now, I now have a website, which Google hasn't quite found yet, but if you go on, if you look for annering.com.au, hopefully soon you will be able to sort of check out information about the book and, as I say, some of my other thoughts about aging as well. Now, I have to say that, at this stage, I hope that you do see the importance of valuing old age for what it is, the benefits to our well-being to do that, and how important it is to challenge the cult of youth that is in our society. That, this negativity has to be challenged by people fighting ageism in whatever ways that we can. Now, in terms of appreciating old age, I do hope that you find this out without having to die in the attempt. And what I mean by that is that there's two women who I want to quote to you because they discovered, or they came publicly out with their ideas about old age at the time when they were dying. And in the way what they've said had left a profound effect on me, and it may well do for you as well. The first one is Belinda Emmett. Now, Belinda Emmett, some of you may remember her, was a very, very talented young actress, and she died at the age of 32 in 2006. In 2005, this is what she said: "It's always hard for me when people say things like, 'I'm getting so old, I'm so old,' when I think that would be great. I just want to be able to say I'm old. It's nobody's fault. It's those things people take for granted that I won't ever take for granted again." So that's what she said from her side of the aging continuum. And from the other side, 72-year-old children's author Jill Murphy made similar observations to The Guardian shortly before she died recently. She said she certainly wasn't complaining. She certainly wasn't planning to start complaining at the end of a long life lived surrounded by love. "I have loved every minute of getting older. Since getting ill, I've realized what an amazing time I've had in just about every department and been taking it all for granted. And if you have had that, and you've got wonderful relatives and friends supporting you, then you never want to leave the party ever." So very profound and amazing women to share those thoughts and to tell us not to take this amazing stage that we're in for granted. The last person has also made this discovery and happily hasn't died. Benjamin Law, you're probably all familiar with him. When he was 32 in 2015, this is what he said. Sure, we're all going to die, but getting old, that's a privilege, baby. So let's all go with that. And I'm now happy to answer questions to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ring. That was fantastic. We really appreciate you speaking with us today and the broader group today. So I'm sure many of you may have some questions for either Dr. Ring, our Mayor, or Councillor Allen. So ask away, put your questions in the chat, and I will then, being the highly skilled person that I am, hopefully I can get the technology to work, and with the team I can ensure that we can ask those questions for you. So we've got a few questions already. Dr. Ring, this is someone who is obviously online who is younger, and they say, my children are younger and I don't have grandparents around. What could you recommend for them to appreciate the value of older people in our community?
That's a really good question. And I think the thing to do is to find where older people are and maybe get involved in something that they're doing. Now, there's a beautiful example in my book, actually, of the bowling club. And a young family joined the bowling club, apparently, because of the cheap meals. And they went, they were all prepared to kind of mock the older people slightly, bowls and so on, sort of. But when they got there and they found that they were being embraced by these older people, that they took the family to heart. The older men were telling the children stories about their lives and really being very interesting. And the family learnt so much, and they've so much appreciated their time with these older people. And so by now they're saying it's not what we've what we've got from them has been such a benefit that they're deeply grateful for this kind of encounter. And I think that's what you need to do in the neighborhood. There are presumably older people. I mean, I don't know, sort of what happens in various localities, but we do a lot of walking where we are. And people are very friendly. We tend to sort of say hello to people. And gradually, in fact, we found that friendships actually build up. So, if you see older people, have a chat to them and, just gradually become friendly. And that's, I think, a very good way of both being multi-generational and, making older people feel appreciated and getting them to be more involved with your children and getting your children to see that they have interesting stories and they're lovely people.
Thank you very much. I think Councillor Allen and also our Mayor would like to contribute to the answer to this question. Councillor Allen, would you like
thank you, Sue. One thing, the person could look at our Active Communities booklet, because that'll show you a lot of activities and organisations that you could connect into. And I love the example that Dr. Ring gave of bowling club. I'm a member of a bowling club. And to try and find a sport that is intergenerational, which bowling is. The really skilled bowlers are young people. And it's wonderful to go bowling with somebody who's 80. In fact, a 92-year-old, my cousin in Apollo Bay is 92. She was skipping a team against a 24-year-old. It is that intergenerational connection is fantastic.
That's great. Thank you. And Ms. Stapleton, did you want to add to that as well?
Thanks, Robyn. Yeah, I just wanted to add also that local community gardens are a fantastic place for families to get involved with. We have some terrific community gardens throughout the Surf Coast, and I know that the older members of those groups love having younger people involved, whether it's the whole family or whether it's just some kids sort of learning a little bit more about gardening. That's a fantastic way to link in with older people in the community. I raised 3 kids locally, same situation, didn't have grandparents nearby. And I just know that the community garden was a great source of connection for the older people in our community. So I definitely encourage you to try that too.
So this is a sort of a follow-on question from that, and that is, What role does council play to ensure we move in this direction? And Councillor Allen and Ms Stapleton, I think you've covered a little bit of that, but would you like to add to that, or Dr. Ring, is there something that you would see that a council, in terms of a council's role in this space?
Did you mean in terms of intergenerational activities?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think Councillor Allen has already made a very good point that there's this wonderful booklet which has all sorts of resources, and that booklet perhaps shouldn't just be restricted to over 55s, but should be for everybody so that they can, see what's available. And I think that really is a very good tool to go with, definitely.
I think I would add to that, in terms of council's role, it's really important that we're out there advocating for older people in the community, and whether it's on issues around transport or housing, there's lots of ways council can actually represent the community's needs and be that voice to make sure that that's reflected in policy making and decision making as well.
There's something else which might be a possibility, and it's not exactly council linked, but the local schools always have PNCs and so on. Is that what they call them in Victoria? And
parents clubs.
What, beg your pardon?
Parents and friends.
Yeah, parents and friends. Well, and any age can be a friend. And really, if older people get involved in the school activities, that's another way that, is a more organised approach, and, a group that is cross generations and has a lot of value for everybody. So, and it keeps, the younger people seeing that the older people are interested in what they're doing, and the old people are, sort of really concerned about the future generations. So, it's a really important marriage of interests.
Can I also add that it's the intergenerational connections that council can make is something that's always on the agenda of the Positive Ageing Advisory Committee. And that's something that we keep in mind when making our recommendations to council.
Thank you. This next question, I think, sort of feeds and adds to that. And so I think you have covered bits of it, but what can we do in our own local communities to combat ageism, particularly given that our community has higher than average numbers of retirees and active older people?
Well, I think one thing I would certainly suggest joining up with Every Age Counts campaign. I think that they really have a lot of insights into this. They work with various councils already. So that's a really good umbrella organisation to join. And actually the book, The Real Old, towards the back has some suggestions as well, sort of, in terms of what councils can do and people can do, in a more organised way. So I think that's really important. And I also think that, I think building on what Councillor Allen said, that this multi-generational thing is really important, and getting older people to have pride in themselves, and perhaps doing things where there's opportunity for older people to tell their stories, and younger people as well, but to exchange stories so that people become humanized. They're not, segregated by sort of age barriers, but everybody's interested in stories. And, we have the Australian story. Everybody loves all these things. So, building on that, and maybe at libraries or things like, places like libraries, to have some sort of intergenerational story exchange, maybe recording them, could be a wonderful resource actually for the council itself. And there's another thing which some places I've seen have, and that is just, with wall art, that they've actually got individuals with their stories as part of the wall art, so, and as soon as you get that sort of personalized view of older people, that really sort of, again, sort of, breaks down barriers. So I think that anything you can do like that is really important.
And I think we have some wonderful role models within our shire. I think the Deans Marsh community is a fantastic example of intergenerational connections, and Aries Inlet, I think, would be very, very similar, Libby. So I think we do have great role models within the shire of this intergenerational connection.
Yeah, I'd agree, Gary. And I would also add, I just think language is so important in terms of changing perceptions. And I think the more that we and older members of the community can use language that values ageing just in our day-to-day conversations, whether it's, having a coffee with friends or at a community meeting, the more we can start to use language that speaks to the value of ageing and what it means to us as a community, you know, change can be slow, but I think eventually people will start to think differently.
Thank you for the answers to that question. I think this next question sort of again builds on that, and it talks to the fact that there are cultures internationally that revere their elders, and the question here is, what's gone so wrong in our culture? How have we allowed old to become a dirty word?
Well, it's a very good question, and I think that it's modern times, the media has a lot to answer for. If you look at some of the research, the way that the media really pushes youth and tends to make older people invisible, it has a lot to answer for. We're living more materialistic and individualistic societies, and so people are more concerned with the here and now, and older people tend to be seen more as a burden. As to how we can change this, well, we're talking about some of the strategies already, but I am very impressed by the fact that we're a multicultural society. And in fact, we're getting a lot of people coming into Australia who do value older people. And I think we need to learn from them rather than having them learn from us, so to speak. And I've got one beautiful example, a personal example, and that is when my mother was living with us and had dementia. We had this most amazing group of women who'd come from Tonga, and their views about elderly people is so respectful and so loving, and they translated that into their care for my mother in a way which I can't tell you how much pleasure and joy it gave us to see that there was this wonderful connection. Now, it was particularly contrasted, I'm afraid, by the fact that for a short time we had just a kind of a service provider of, you know, local Australian people, and the word perfunctory is the kindest word that I can use about the care that they got from, my mother got from them. It just was a completely different category. So, I mean, in nursing homes and so on, actually a lot of these people from other cultures come and they're not really valued. They're just used as kind of labor. But we need to be learning from these people, and we need to really try and change and be more loving towards our older people in the way that you know, they're bringing their values to us and demonstrating how to do it.
Margaret Thatcher once said that the hardest thing to change in politics is attitudes. and this is so with this question too. How do you change that attitude that is ingrained within the Australian community? And I think it's done by example. And if I can say, I think starting a career in local government at the age of 75, I think I'm setting a good example. Joe Biden is setting a fantastic example by being president of the United States at 70. So it's by people being examples. And I also think that economic necessity is going to force a greater change in attitude, where younger people will have to rely on older people because of the economic necessity of being able to work will gradually change that attitude as well.
Thank you. Our next question is, what are your thoughts on the WHO language of age-friendly as opposed to the word old?
Well, that's a particularly interesting question, because when you think of the phrase age-friendly, obviously you think it includes old, but in fact the context that they were using it in, if that's what you're referring to, is the 2005 report, when age-friendly was actually a synonym, or, you know, a softer way of saying for old. You know, so I do not agree with using age-friendly as just defining old people. I would love to see it age-friendly as being friendly to all ages and including old people. So yes, that's my reaction to that.
Thank you, Dr. Ring. Getting back to the intergenerational model, we've got a question here. Where do senior citizen centres fit into this intergenerational model?
Sorry, I missed the first bit. What was that?
Where do the senior citizens centres fit in this intergenerational model?
Well, that's something I don't know very much about, because I actually don't know much about senior centres. So possibly Councillor Allen or Mayor Stapleton might be better to answer that one.
Look, it's a very vexed question, because I know that senior citizen centres are struggling to survive, because they're not recruiting people as they're ageing. And I think that it's partly associated with this notion of senior citizens, and I don't want to be known as a senior citizen. And I think that's part of the responsibility. And here in Lorne, the centre virtually wound up. And because our community was active in revitalising it and rebranding it to a Lorne Community Connect was the rebranding, and focusing on the arts, because the arts is intergenerational. And I think that's a very good way to try and break down the barriers through the arts. And so I think communities have got to take some responsibility here. Things can't always be done for you. And so if you want to keep your centres active, then you've got to think laterally about ways of doing it.
And I think COVID has given us all a bit of sort of time to pause and consider the way we do things. And I know that it's been difficult probably for our senior citizens to get together at their clubs over the last 2 years. So it's probably a really good opportunity to sort of reflect on how the clubs are used and whether there are opportunities to do something similar to what's happening at Lorne with Community Connect. I think that's a fantastic model that you've got in Lorne, and the opportunity to perhaps recruit some more sort of intergenerational members, or at least put special events on that will attract people from different age groups is a great opportunity now.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Libby, and I should have made it. I mean, COVID has made it. It has been a problem.
So here's a slightly provocative question. What do older people contribute to our society?
Well, a lot, actually.
I agree.
But just to name a few things, one of the key carers of grandchildren are grandparents. Even more than, when you look at the figures, even more than childcare places and so on. They're an incredible force for good in terms of helping their children and also building, of course, at the same time, wonderful relationships with their grandchildren. So it's a win-win situation. So that's really good. Older people are often excellent volunteers in a whole range of activities that are really important and keep things ticking over. It's very, very important that they do that. The volunteer work is really good. And they mentor people. They're people becoming fitter and healthier and living longer. Older people actually quite often go on working very productively. And as I say, mentoring younger people in the workplace, which is really important. So that's just a few of the things that older people make. Another big one, economically, it's older people have the time to travel and who spend on travel. So they're really lifeblood for the tourist industry. They're in industry. They're, in Australia and generally, but certainly in Australia now more so. It's very important that there are all sorts of ways that older people contribute, and that's just naming a few.
I think within our communities, if you were to take the older generation out of volunteer organisations, a lot of them would collapse because younger people, they both are working in couples and they don't have as much time to contribute to voluntary organisations. And I think the contribution there is really very, very important with the experience and wisdom that can be offered. But I think a common denominator in all of those connections with older people is a wonderful generosity of spirit. I think older people have a wonderful generosity of spirit that I think is very important for our communities.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Gary. And I think that without wanting to generalise, I think a lot of people, as they age, hopefully are kind of losing a bit of ego. And I think that you get to...
I don't know about that.
I said I didn't want to generalise, Gary. I think a lot of older people are in a better space to actually love without fear and to show compassion in a way that hasn't got a lot of sort of baggage and expectation attached to it. And I think that contributes so much to our communities in terms of our ability to connect and support and care for each other. I can't imagine not having that in the fabric of our community. So yeah, I'm really grateful for all of us who are ageing.
Said Mayor Stapleton. Dr. Ring, there's a question very specifically for you here. Do you think that retirement homes tend to segregate older people from the rest of society and add to the problem? And if so, how would you change or review these?
Well, I have to admit I don't know very much about retirement homes. There certainly is an element of segregation, but I think that could be sorted very easily by bringing the community and the surrounding community in together with the retirement villages. I mean, I don't know how they are now within the context of the community, but it shouldn't be at all difficult. There's schools around, and in a way, these retirement villages must be very safe centres to bring children. There's all sorts of things that one could do to bring, make it a more multi-generational experience. I mean, these places normally have cafes and possibly cinemas and things. They could be doing things that involve, their neighbours. I mean, there's lots of wonderful things that you could do, and maybe some of them are already doing it. I don't know.
Thank you. The next question, how do we make sure that we still look after older people who aren't as active, who are in need of support and aren't as connected?
Well, I mean, that's challenging, and it depends a lot on their family and context, really, and whether if they're surrounded by a family who can help them, that's a huge thing. And if not, well, really, you do need a supportive community, and as much as possible. And from what I gather with Surf Coast, you probably do have some sorts of structures there that will help. I noticed I had a quick look at your booklet, and there seemed to be a section there on if you need help, these are the organisations that can, support you and so on. So I think that there are resources within a community that can help. And I really sort of feel that family is important. I don't know, to me, when I've seen strong families support each other, that's really a very beautiful thing.
And I'd add to that, I think that people who have lived in the Surf Coast for a long time probably have really good connections, but I know that our population is also growing, and I think people who are potentially new to the community are sometimes a little reluctant to sort of reach out and connect. And I think that the community houses that we have around the Surf Coast do a really great job of connecting. And like the booklet that we've just launched, it's a way for people to, they might not find their thing first up, but try a few different options, join a few different groups, and you'll eventually sort of meet your tribe and connect with new people out in the community. And I just encourage everyone to do that, because we are welcoming, and I think most people should be able to find a group that they'll connect with.
There is something else I want to add, because I do know that a lot of old people are very independent, and even if they may need some help, they just feel they don't want to ask for it, because then they lose some of their autonomy. And I think that it's really important that older people know when they need help and are prepared to ask for it and look for it, rather than feeling that they're just going to struggle on because that's what they've always done. I think that's a big issue.
Thank you. Now, our questions are slowing down. If people have more questions, please send them through. But just as we wait to see if people feel like they've had all of their questions answered, is there anything else anyone would like to add? Dr. Ring, Councillor Allen, or Mayor Stapleton?
I
think I'm good.
I suppose when we were talking about nursing homes, I was going to sort of make the point that we're going through with the nursing home organisations what we did in the post-war baby boom period in terms of education. We had this surge of people coming through, and so our solution was build more schools, common curriculum, 30 in a class, and so it was very, very bureaucratised to cope with the problem. Now, we're now seeing the same problem now in our age centres. And I think we've got to be very mindful. I don't know that there's a way around providing care for all without it being slightly institutionalised. And so it is very difficult. And it does depend, I think, on the quality of the individual organisations and the community that supports those organisations. There are very good centres and there are very bad centres.
Well, I think, I mean, if we're talking about nursing homes, before we were talking about retirement villages, which I think are a slightly different thing, but nursing homes, to me, the caring professions and at both ends, nursing homes and childcare, where we fall down grievously is that we don't give the carers the value that they should have. I mean, a caring occupation is a really important occupation. And if we value that occupation and the carers feel that they're valued, they go about their work, I think, in a different way. I mean, let alone financially rewarding, but it is really important that they know that what they do is a very important job, rather than just doing it because they can't find any other work and being treated very casually and having to go to different places all the time to make just enough money. I mean, that lack of respect for this important occupation is part of where we fall down, I think. And as you say, Councillor Allen, with some nursing homes, and I've seen a lot in my time, there are some where the don is superb. It brings, you know, a fabulous ethos into the whole place, and, you know, that you can feel the atmosphere when you go in. And there are others which, back to my word of perfunctory, you know, are just holding pins, and it's a nightmare. So, you know, it's how you handle these things is a really important part of it, I think.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ring. Well, I think the questions have stopped, but I think we've had a wonderful afternoon, and I would like to thank you, Dr. Ring, for your speech this afternoon, for answering the questions, being part of this really important day with us, and also to Councillor Allen and Mayor Stapleton. I'd like to wish everyone a fantastic afternoon. And I encourage you to think about joining our Friday events for the rest of October. This is a really important month. This is an amazing community that we're so fortunate to live in and be part of. And ensuring that we make these connections, we really look for those ways that we can ensure that we support and facilitate positive ageing, and we make those connections and we think about that intergenerational connections. That really is such a fundamental part of the fabric of our community in Surf Coast, and something we really want to support. So I thank you very much for this afternoon, and have a great day.
Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate being part of the community for this short while.
Thank you, Dr. Ring.
Thanks, everyone.